Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Pathfinder Kingmaker. I'm your host, Cullis Fade, and it is episode 43. We're about to crawl back into the capital. This is one of 3 episodes here in a bunch, 42, 43, and 44, where I'm doing the voiceover narration after the fact, because the microphone was off the whole time. Much to my chagrin, but here we are. And we're ready to get back on with things. We took on the Goblin King and defeated him, and now we have to come back and defend the capital. And this is something that I was talking about in a much earlier episode. Now we got everybody buffed here. That's what that pause was for. You're going to see more and more of that as we go through the game. Your grace at last. I'm not sure how much longer we have made it without you, because they are under attack by many beasts here, which is really unfortunate. So, report, despite the dire situation, we're holding on. There have been casualties, but we're evacuating as many civilians as we can to safe locations. You made it just in time, Your Grace. You can still save your people and your capital, which is good. Is Keston here? Yes, I saw him. He ran past with a group of reinforcements, cursing up a hill and down dale. I'm not sure where he was headed, though. So we'll heal the guard, and they will thank us. We'll show these beasts what we're made of. Yeah, so we have to get on. This is what I was talking about, how at the end of this episode, at the end of this chapter, there's this giant creature boss mob that you have to beat that has a really high AC. I really struggled with it in normal mode, so I was super concerned about it here on core rules mode. It's a giant owlbear, but what's cool is I was wrong about it being the end of the chapter. You actually still have to go far upriver to the womb of Lamashtu and figure out what the source is for these seeds that are causing all these magical portals to open up and explode people. So this isn't truly the end of the chapter, but it is this giant boss mob, and it's really cool to... For me, at this point, it's really cool to finally understand the game and its systems and the spells and the bonuses well enough to be able to defeat this thing on core rules. So that's a lot of fun. So there's a whole lot of defeating of these monsters. This is what the whole entire town is undergoing right now. And we're going to try our best to make use of Lindsay and her mezzing abilities, because she can mezz a lot of these things. Just want to get everybody in position. And there's lots of these manticores, and there's lots of hydras and owlbears, and it's just the next hour is that's awesome when he crits like that. The next hour is just chock full of battles, and to me this is one of those fun things. But going a step back, we saw at the end of last episode where if you don't tell Keston to screw his head back on straight and come back here and help, that's when you lose him. And then you don't get him as an advisor going forward. And you very much want him as an advisor. You want him as your warden.
Which knife do you
Because if he's your warden, then you can put Ekindeo in a much different position. What you can do then is you can put Ekindeo in as the minister, which is the only position that uses dexterity as its governing attribute. And since Ekindeo is a ranger, we can jack his dexterity up pretty high to help him solve problems. And that's just a huge part of the game from here on forward, because we've unlocked the first 5 advisors, and now we're going to get into, over the course of the next 3 or 4 episodes, we're going to unlock the other 5, and then you're going to have all 10 advisors, and that doubles the amount of people that you have to level up. Remember, it takes 14 days to level up an advisor. We will be able to cut that to 7 days later on, but for now it's 14, and that's a lot of time. So 14 with 5 advisors, that's a lot of weeks that we have to spend upgrading people. Well, now you double that to 10. That's 140 days of just upgrading people if you want them to get 1 upgrade.
Knock, knock,
So it's a significant amount of time. And the important thing is getting the right people in all those advisor positions and then making sure their roles are maximized so that you don't end up with problems. So Lindsay, Mez and things, we can see up at the top of the screen. The only thing that hasn't is that one wyvern over there. Dwemel wyvern. So she's just awesome here with her ability to mez, and I find it really interesting to play her as this class, as I was mentioning in one of the other. It might be the next episode, because I actually did the voiceover for episode 44 before I did this one. I got a little confused. That's what happens when you have tons of files and you've recorded tons of episodes and then you realize that 3 of them didn't have voiceover and you got to go back. A lot of confusion going on. You get into... I use DaVinci Resolve to edit all my videos and to form them into shape so that they can go on YouTube, and it's a substantial amount of work sometimes. This makes it a lot more work, so things can get confusing. But in one of these videos, I'm talking about how Lindsay, as this particular kind of class, as a mezzer, basically, as an old school, what I think of an old school EverQuest mezzer, an enchanter who could mesmerize a whole bunch of different creatures all at once, which allowed you then to do exactly what we've been doing in this game, which is pick on one creature and kill it, and then go to the next one and pick on it and kill it. That's the way it worked in EverQuest, and that's the way it worked if you had an enchanter in your party, which was why enchanters were so highly sought after. You would go into any particular hard zone where people could get really good experience in groups, but it was hard, it was difficult. You could die a lot if you were careless, and you would see people shouting for enchanters. I mean, there was always the people looking for group, and there was always the people in groups looking for more members, but the number one on everybody's list was get an enchanter. And it worked out really well, because what you would do is, like, I played a Shadow Knight, which was what we called a puller, which means I would pull a group of enemies to us, because you could never get one by itself. So you'd pull a group of 4, 5, 6 enemies to your group. And the way things are designed in EverQuest is any particular one of those enemies could destroy everybody in the group on an individual basis. So it needs to be 6-on-1, really. Unless you had an off tank, and then you could maybe do 6-on-2, and so it really worked out. If you had an enchanter, you could pull 4, 5, 6 animals there, and then creatures or whatever you were fighting in that particular dungeon, frogs and froglock, and they'd all run into your group, and the enchanter would go bling, and she'd mez them all, and then she had to keep casting her memorization spell to keep things mezzed. It used up a lot of mana. That was also why they liked to have bards around, because bards were what we called mana batteries. So it wasn't the bard that did the mezzing in EverQuest. The bards worked as a way as a mana regeneration, and the enchanter did the mezzing. Here, in Pathfinder rules, in this version, which I believe is version 1.0, the bard can sing songs and they can mez everything. So it ends up working out really, really well. But I like this because you can have these big encounters with multiple creatures and your party doesn't get annihilated. This is the first time I played through the game. The first 2 times I've tried to play through the game. When I rage quit my way through, the very first time I played through the game, I got maybe a little further after. I got Season of the Bloom, which was this. And at one point in time, the Bald Hilltop thing happened, and I was upgrading one of my advisors, and that takes 14 days, and every day or every 2 days you would get negatives to your kingdom stats. And since I didn't really want to go back to a prior save, and I didn't have a save system set up then, my kingdom died. So I quit. So then I tried again. I got to the house at the end of the time on the second playthrough, but the whole time I was not using Lindsay, and I was not using a bard, and I had no idea that she could do this. And all of this whole game was so much harder. It's really, the bard is what I would call a necessary class if you're going to fight this many enemies. Otherwise, you got to have 2, 3 tanky types with super high AC that just can't get hit by these things, and then you need a lot of healing. And that was the thing I've noticed here on this playthrough, and you've probably seen it. I'm just not using a lot of the healing from Tristan or even Harim when he's in the party. I'm just not using a lot of healing. The first 2 times I played through this game, their channel energy for healing, I was burning through those, and we were constantly having to rest. So the cleric could replenish all their healing spells. And now it's just not something that gets used that much. So I think the bard is the important class. The flip side of that is Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out soon. It's probably going to be out by the time this video gets released, actually. It's probably already been out for a few days by the time this video gets released in the schedule, if I'm doing the math correctly. And I'm looking at that class thinking, oh, maybe I want to play a bard. And the reason is because Lizelle in Baldur's Gate 3 is a Githyanki, and she's set up perfectly to be an Eldritch Knight, which is my favorite class and what I would prefer to play. But I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll use Lizelle as an Eldritch Knight, and I'll play like a bard paladin. Right? Except bards in Baldur's Gate 3, in the D&D Rule 5, 5th edition rules, they don't operate like this, which is really disappointing. And their spells are really stupid, like Charm Person. It charms the person so it won't attack the bard, but it'll still attack the rest of your party. I was like, that's completely useless. The only time that wouldn't be useless is if you were trying to solo the game with a bard. I don't understand the 5th edition rules. I don't understand the choices they made with that rule set. I'm going to have a really hard time. I played through the early access of Baldur's Gate 3 a couple of weeks ago, and I played almost to the end of it. I got really close to the end of the early access, and then I quit playing, and I was just like, I'm really confused with the rule set. I don't understand a lot of the choices, and I have no idea how I'm going to get through that game with only 4 characters. That's one of the oddest things to me, is that you can only have your character and 3 more companions. It worked in Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. I remember playing Divinity Original Sin 1 and being like, I only have 4 characters? It's going to be hard. But they balanced and tuned every single encounter for that. And I'm sure all the encounters in Baldur's Gate 3 are also balanced and tuned for a 4-member party. But it just feels weird after years and years and years of playing these games. The Infinity Engine games. Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale 1, Icewind Dale 2. Even Planescape Torment. And then going on and playing other games like Pillars of Eternity 1, which allowed 6 party members. And now I'm only going to get 4 in a Dungeons & Dragons game? Like, it's different when it's somebody else's rule set, like Larian's, where it's Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and they have their complete own rule set. Okay, cool. But Dungeons & Dragons to me has always been 6 people. And that's why I was put off immediately playing Pillars of Eternity 2 by the fact that they took a party member away. And I only got 5. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Because the way I look at my party in Pillars of Eternity is really simple. There's Adair in the front line, and he's the defensive tank. And then I have another tank that's also set up to be defensive, and it's a paladin, so it can use a defensive aura. Then the line behind them, because there's so many choke points in the first Pillars of Eternity game, the line behind them is a second paladin that is offensive and uses a reach weapon. And then my Cypher, which is basically a fighter mage. It's the Pillars of Eternity version of a fighter mage. And so since it's a little squishy, it's also second row with a reach weapon and has really cool spells. And then the last row is Aloth the Wizard, because he's going to have his offensive spells and party buffs. And then a priest, because you have to have buffs for the whole party. That's 6 people. So then when you're playing Pillars of Eternity 5, what do? Well, you have to... Since the character I'm playing is the fighter mage, the Cypher, I effectively have to either get rid of the first frontline tank, which is defensive, or the second frontline tank, which is an offensive paladin. One of those 2 have to go, because I'm not going to chuck Aloth, and you can't live without a priest. And it's like, dang it. And so the same thing is happening in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm looking at the party composition, and I'm like, well, I'd like to play with Lizelle, because she's going to be an EK. And I'm going to be an Eldritch Knight, probably, unless I play something like a Paladin Sorcerer. And then you've got to have the Cleric, so you have to have Shadowheart with you. You'd really like to have a Wizard with you for all the spells. So you're going to want to take Gale with you. Well, that's 4 people already. That doesn't leave you any room to take the Warlock, who's a really cool character. And then anybody else you want to take. Like, I don't care about the vampire guy. I'm, you know. But still, it's like 5 people would have been great. But you get 4. It's going to be really hard to figure out how to play that game. And the interesting thing to me, I understand people are going to want to play through that game multiple times to play different classes. And I normally would too. But they've said it's 200 hours of gameplay. Like, if you tell me Baldur's Gate 3 is really a 60-hour game, I'm going to say, great. Then I'm going to play through one time with an Eldritch Knight, and I'm going to play another time with a Paladin Sorcerer, and I'm going to play another time with like a Bard Paladin, and I might play another time with some kind of other character. But it's 200 hours? I'm not going through that game 2 or 3 times. I went through Divinity Original Sin 2 twice, and it was 120 hours both times. And I did it the second time for the channel, and then I was like, I'm gassed. I'm done with that game. At this point in time, so things went bad there. So we reloaded. Rebuffed and reloaded, I think. I'm still looking, I'm thinking that I need to find our boy. I'm thinking that I need to find Keston. It's funny, I was just like, no, things are going badly, I'm going to reload. This particular group of monsters was a little tough, and part of it was you could see Ferocious Wyvern and the Red Duemo Wyvern are succeeding, and so is the Owlbear. So she's only mezzing 2 of the 3 things, and there's just not enough guys here. That Duemo Owlbear, the purple Duemo Owlbear, has a ton of mirror images on it. So it takes a really long time to kill. I actually think this is a harder encounter than the giant owlbear, in retrospect. Now that I've had time to sit and live through the episode and watch it again. And recollect everything. I mean, this was just kind of brutal. It's like, we got to kill that guy first. And here's the other problem. If any of these dingbats hit the mezzed guys, they wake up. So you're really hoping that they don't attack the wyverns that are mezzed. And fortunately, Ragongar comes in there. Does some major damage, which is pretty awesome. And it's, oh man, they can minus to your con and I think your strength too. That's devastating. So Lindsay's like, well, I'd like to do something else, but I'd like to give everybody more buffs, but I got to try and work these guys as best I can. So odds of us getting overwhelming grief on that owlbear are pretty small. You can see it's got a 12 wisdom and it's got a +5 will save, so maybe we can do it. And its will saving throw succeeded because it rolled a 16 with its 5 modifiers. I mean, what do you do? That's what happens with those single target spells. They just save. That's my luck at single target spells. Like, I feel like I have pretty good luck with her song being able to mez enemies. I feel like I've had really good luck with that. But when it comes to single target spells, like her spell there and Tristan's ability to make a creature sickened with that little green ray that he shoots out, those single target spells I just have no luck with. So now we're down to 3 critters, which isn't too bad. Knock's like, well, I'm going to have to hit this thing. The owlbear's awake, so you got to go over here and you got to smack it. And fortunately, he's just really good right there. Look at that. He had really good hits. He critically hit once, and then the damage, 38, 33, 39. That's just... God, that's why I like that. That's why when I play this game, I make sure that my melee characters take at least a level of Slayer, and they take that Vivisectionist so they can get those sneak attacks, because it does add up. That sneak attack damage. And then when you have a pure sneak attacker like Knock, I mean, he's brutal. It's great. That was also one of the very first mistakes that I made playing the game the very first time. I didn't understand the value of sneak attack, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have a tower shield specialist, no big deal, and I'm going to have my EK as just a straight up,
Come here, Bat.
4 levels of fighter, 5 levels of wizard, and then go EK the rest of the way, and I didn't have the sneak attack damage, and I just didn't straight up do enough damage. Just didn't do enough damage, and that was on normal. So I'm a big fan of taking those dips so you can get the sneak attacks. He's sitting here trying to figure out, what do I do? Well, Bergangar, you need to hit this guy. He's got a bunch of mirror images. It's just kind of ridiculous. And I'm trying to figure out if I should try to dispel with it, because can I dispel them all off? Oh, do I actually try this? Yeah, you see, fails to dispel, and the reason is because it rolled an 8 and a 7. Caster level check. So when it comes my turn to roll for a check, I don't roll the 16. I don't roll the 18. I roll the 7. Jeez. How pathetic. It would have been better to try that with Lindsay first doing the one right next to the Inspire Competency, so I could get a +2 to his roll, but it still wouldn't have been enough. I mean, it's just dice, and dice hate me.
Serves you right.
The dice hate. That's what I need to do, is get somebody to. I already have a piece of art right now that I haven't put out for the Patreons yet, and everybody else. I'm trying to get the website kind of set up so I can do it for t-shirts and hoodies and anything else. And I have a piece of art. I can't wait to show it to y'all because it's going to be so much fun. But the next piece of art needs to be like a pair of dice that has a big angry mouth on it that kind of looks like a mimic chest opening, except it's these dice, and the caption can be "The dice hate me." Because it's just... who needs mimics when you have dice? I mean, it's just brutal. So Verdell is here, and he is the Your Grace is wounded. Help me get him out before he loses too much blood. Well, okay, Verdell, I will. So we'll go down here and we'll help this guy. Gathering all your strength, you and the blacksmith manage to lift the monster's bulk off the ground and drag the guard out from beneath it. Lad's been within a hair's breadth of dying. He makes it to the end of battle. You should call this his second birthday. We'll heal the guard. Of course. Ask what happened. Well, I was sitting in my smithy. I heard some shouting in the street, so I grabbed my maul and headed out. Saw this ugly mug throw that poor guard to the ground and get a huge bite in. So I gave it a good whack to the head, and then another, and so on until it stopped moving. Wasn't strong enough to pull the lad free from under its fat belly, though. Good thing you showed up. You killed the beast on your own? Impressive. I can fight all right, just don't like to. Well, it's fortunate we're here because we have urgent purchases to make, like the selling of things. So this is one of the interesting things about this is Verdell is the only merchant here in the city while it's under siege. And you still have to go all the way up river to the Womb of Lamashtu after this is over to try and root out the problem and put an end to it, which means a dungeon, which means you're going to want things like... What you're going to want is camping supplies, and he doesn't have any. Now, there's also a merchant out at Lake Silverstep on the way to the Womb of Lamashtu. It also does not have camping supplies. So in a game where camping supplies are kind of necessary to go about hanging out in a dungeon, we don't have camping supplies. We're looking for the big guy now. All that's left on this map. I still haven't found Keston, and I didn't realize that I'm not going to see him for a little while. There's a... Yeah, we just saw over to the right there. There was a critter. I'm still looking. I'm trying to figure out what the hell do I have to do on this map. There's a Hydra over here. And a couple of bears. So we're getting close to the end of this thing. Clearing this map. This is one of my favorite instances in the whole game. This little bit here where we're in the capital and it's under siege and there's all these animals and there's just a lot of fights and a couple of them are challenging, and this is right up my alley. This is why I came back to this game. Played through Wrath of the Righteous, put Wrath of the Righteous on the channel. Not unhappy that I did that because I do love those dungeons. Like, there's some really cool dungeons in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. I just wish the companions were better. Otherwise, I'd probably just keep playing through that game. I mean, it's not bad. It's got some really cool encounters. It's got the siege. The siege is pretty cool. The siege of the big, huge castle. When you're sieging it and trying to take it over. The various dungeons across the map. And certainly the whole campaign management is a lot easier than dealing with the kingdom management here. But I kept thinking about this game when I was playing Wrath of the Righteous and just how much some of these encounters are so memorable, particularly this one. This whole city being under siege thing. Like, this is ingrained in my memory the way there are certain encounters in Baldur's Gate 2 ingrained in my memory. They're just there. And it made me want to come back to this because when I finally did figure this game out and beat it, it was just really satisfying. And part of the reason that I started to figure things out is because I'd been playing Wrath of the Righteous. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Wait a second. You can do what? I started to understand better the whole system. Like, here's what I'd love to see for a mod, which would be really fun. Maybe somebody can make this. I'd like to see a mod that would import the characters from Kingmaker into Wrath of the Righteous so that I could have Ragongar and Knock Knock and Valerie in my party instead of characters like Camellia and Darren. God, they made so many characters that I hate in that game. It was just, that was the slog. At first I thought what I hated about that game was the campaign management. I'm like, these battles are dumb. This is Heroes of Might and Magic, except it's stupid. You know, and that's what everybody said. They're like, this doesn't look good, this doesn't feel good, this doesn't play good, this is pointless. But really, the thing that made it hard was the companions, because you have to spend so much time with them, and they're just so bloody awful. Regil is a character that were at real life, if I were really in that game, you transported me to that game. The minute he opened his mouth, I just put my sword right in it. I'd be like, I'm done with you. I don't care if you're Paralict or whatever. You are a disgusting individual. And your outlook on life is awful.
You forced my hand.
I mean, it's just amazing how many bad... I think party-based role-playing games can get away with having one bad character out of a dozen. I think you're okay. You can have one and people can ignore it. If you don't make it critical to the plot, it's cool. People can say, well, all the rest of them are good, so... But Wrath of the Righteous made half the characters suck.
Let us strike as one.
Here we only have 1.5 bad characters. Harim is only a quote-unquote bad character because he's grumpy. Because he's really grumpy, and all he talks about is doom and gloom. Death. Everything is inevitable. There's no reason to be happy because we're all going to die and everything will come to an end. Okay, Mr. Sad Pants. You get a timeout. You get to go sit away from the campfire and be cold. We're all going to sit here and have hot toddies.
Which knife to use?
And then Tristan, who's set up to be a really great character, a character that you want to care about. But you know, he's got every single one of the worst character qualities that you can have, and it's hidden behind this facade.
I'll cut you.
He's the betrayer. worse than a betrayer. He's a hypocrite. It's like, oh, my brother, really?
Do not falter.
But everybody else is just so good. Lindsay, and she's got this fantastic class, even if she does have stubby little legs. That doesn't make her as mobile as she probably needs to be as a bard. And Ragongar and Octavia and Valerie and Knock Knock and even Amiri. I mean, I wish I had room to put Amiri in my group. She's fun, but I'm not going to put Amiri in my group over Valerie and Ragongar. And the reason why is because Amiri is just a straight up barbarian. And these two, I mean, obviously I'm making her a Slayer barbarian, but these two, because they have high charisma, are going to get dreadful carnage and be way more effective in combat than Amiri is going to be. Plus, for whatever reason, Amiri just misses a lot for me. And that's without using her big dumb sword that takes penalties, so. But if I could have a 7th character in my party, I'd have Amiri. She's fantastic. And then, of course, there's Jubilost. He's great. He's fantastic, and you need him at certain times because his bombs are just... You need them against swarms, and they're really useful against other characters. Ekindeo is a character that I would take in my party if I had more room. He's great as a ranger. He's a nice character. He's, you know, the quiet guy who's to himself and he's kind of grumpy himself, but it's more like he's just really serious. It's not so much grumpy. And he's got this troubling past, you know, that's hanging over him like a dark cloud. But he's also an awesome ranger, and you can turn him into a ranger or a ranger slayer or all kinds of different stuff. There's just so many good companions with good classes that make your party useful. And even Jaethal, who's flat out evil. The thing I like about her compared to all the evil characters in Wrath of the Righteous, Jaethal isn't trying to bullshit anybody. She's straight up. She's evil. She's okay with it. And you better be okay with it too. I like that. And the cool thing is she's undead, so I don't want her in my party anyways because she's too hard to heal. So it's like, okay, I just need to keep you alive so I can use you as an advisor. That's it. Like, they're just, the character balance, the companion balance in this game is perfect. Just damn near perfect. And then there's Wrath of the Righteous, and it's like, hey, how many awful characters can we stick in one game? Or if they give you a good character, then they write them so poorly that you end up hating it. And a perfect example of that is Lan. Lan is a great character right from the beginning. I'm like, ooh, I like this guy. He's like Two-Face. He's half and half, and he's got kind of a witty sense of humor. Perfect. Then I take him through the whole game, and he can do this monk shoot thing, and he can shoot 10 arrows at once. He's absolutely awesome. And then you get to the end, and they write him so stupidly. They give him the dumbest arc. It's awful. It's like, what the hell? While the fierce battle rages, these people aren't fighting or fleeing. Rather, they're entering one of the ruined buildings and seem to be filling their sacks with whatever goods have been left behind. Noticing you, one of the marauders turns pale and drops his bag. God damn. You have a choice. Either I execute you here and now, or you voluntarily submit yourselves to the captain of the guard and follow his every command. Looking back and forth between themselves, the pale-faced marauders eventually nod, drop their bags, and make their way to the captain of the guard under your watchful eye. Looters. Yeah, so we're just about done here. We're like, getting the ends. We got to go back now. Make sure everybody's got their buffs on. Verdel's the only map marker. Yeah, so Lan gets written in the Wrath of the Righteous, where at the very end he decides to suicide himself. Like, what? What? Who thought that was a good idea? But this is something that Owlcat likes to do, is have character suicide. I gotta kill this thing by myself. I gotta go and do this thing by myself. Like, that is a trope that they just lean on way too heavily. I gotta go do this thing by myself. I can't have you with me. I gotta do it by myself. Amiri wants to go kill all the creatures by herself. Knock Knock wanted to go kill the Goblin King by himself. Lan had to go do this thing by himself, and if you let him do it by himself, he dies. It's like, what? Why are you guys leaning so heavily on that trope? It stinks, first of all. It's a stinky trope. And second of all, why would you use that so much? It's like they ran out of good ideas for characters. I mean, Lan being this half-breed between two worlds, he was set up so good to be this character that could bridge gaps, and instead he turns into this. Instead, he does a complete 180 for no reason at the very end of the story, and just becomes this isolated character that wants to go off on his own and die. It's like, what? I don't get it. I did not get it. I still don't get it. I still think it's bad writing. It makes me mad even thinking about it. It's like, dang it, he was a fun character. He was one of the few fun characters in that game, and they ruined him. And the other character that just really fell down for me, that did not work, was Seela, the paladin, which I was so excited about when I initially saw her, because I'm like, ooh, badass black woman paladin. Doesn't that totally fit? Like, wouldn't that make an awesome character? The first person that immediately came to mind was Viola Davis. I mean, she's the definition of a badass black woman, right? She's completely owning Hollywood. And she's awesome. She exudes that strength, right? That black woman strength that's like, I am going to take charge of the situation. Y'all better buckle up. And that's what I thought Seela would be. Here, I'm just clicking through the dialogue because I think I'm still looking for Keston at this point in time. And you don't need to look for Keston at all. He'll show up when the whole thing is over. But getting back to Seela, the point I wanted to make is the idea of putting a strong black woman in paladin armor is totally fit, because strong black women are paladins in real life. They're just badass. And instead we got this sort of popcorn fluff version. We got this Seela who isn't strong and offensive, who's not going to offend anybody's sensibilities. And I really felt like that was soft pedaling what the strong black woman paladin could have been. And we can see that the boss mob Owlbear has finally showed up. We are now to the really, really exciting part. We are to the giant freaking Owlbear, which has a really high AC, the greater Primal Owlbear. And my inspection failed, of course. So we don't know what it's capable of. So the key thing here is to get everybody prepped.
And Lindsay was called for.
If there's any prepping we can do.
Here.
Get the spells going, because this thing snuck up on us. Since they show the movie of it walking closer to us, we don't have any time to buff more. It's just here. Oh man, it's here and it's a menace. It's here and it's just going to be a disaster. So her odds of being able to mez this thing are really, really small. Or being able to land any of those things, overwhelming greed for anything. It's like, we don't know what its capabilities are yet. And I'm thinking, can I fascinate it? Doubtful. I mean, it'd be really cool if you could, but there's no way they're going to let this thing be easily fascinated, so. Archon's aura to try to help bring down its ability to hit us. I don't think that brings down its AC anymore. I'm thinking about what I can do with Knock Knock here. Reduce person. That way he can get an additional +2. He's got some bark skin there. I mean, at this point in time, you're just thinking, how many more buffs can I get on my team before I have to attack this thing? Because this thing is a tried and true menace. This is the boss. She's got some stuff here too. We need to make her bigger. So she's got to get out in front to attract this thing's attention, although I don't really want to attract its attention, because it's going to do that. You can see it only had to roll a 2 to hit those guards. Ragongar has a chance here. He's got to put mirror image on. What am I thinking right here? Am I thinking mirror image? I better be. Because he can't afford to get hit. He's only got 75 hit points. This thing will eat him in one turn. Look, it did 31 damage and 32 damage to the guards. So, nope, I go straight for the old frigid touch. And I missed. So he needed a 14 to hit it, which was no good. So, that's why he shouldn't have gone before Lindsay. We should have waited for Lindsay to see what she's going to do. And there's the Fascinate, and it failed its saving throw. Good Lord. It succeeded at that saving throw. She's trying to make it more permanent, because as soon as they hit it, it's going to wake up. And if it woke up and it had that particular effect on it, then it still wouldn't be able to attack. So if he uses Ray of Sickening, he's going to be throwing it into combat, which is going to take a -4 to hit. So his odds of making that work. So here's the smart thing to do. Give it skeletons so that when it does wake up, it's going to have to fight those. And they have almost no chance to hit it because they have to roll a nat 20 to hit it, which is good because we don't want it to wake up yet. We want my character and Knock Knock and Ragongar and Valerie to all be right next to it before anybody starts swinging. So that's what I'm going to do, is place my character down here, and then I hope I'm true striking. Oh, no, I'm going to make everybody a little more defensive. Is that what I'm going to do? Nope, I'm going to mirror image myself. That's smart. Knock Knock, you can be anywhere you want to, so just be right next to me, buddy. That's good. Valerie, you got to get up here on the other side of the skeletons preferably, so hopefully it'll attack the skeletons first. But I'm going to put her right next to it. That way she counts for the outflank, hopefully. I mean, we need to get into a position where when people start swinging, they hit this thing, they can crit it, and everybody else can join in. That's really the most important thing here. He missed pretty good, so he's going to go into mirror image, which is smart. I hope he's going to do something else here. He doesn't have anything else he can do. She's going to take one more turn to try to get Cacophonous Call on it.
May I suggest another way to use this spell?
And it succeeds at a saving throw because it rolls an 18, of course. I mean, this is what it's going to do. So she's going to switch over. We need to get her to go first next turn. Saving throw succeeded because it rolled a 4 plus 29 modifier, so there's no way he can actually land that spell. It's not possible. Can't be sickened with that spell. Keston's going to get up here and do what? He's going to miss. So what am I doing? Am I going to defensive everybody? Do I even know what it is yet? It is still, it's just an animal. I don't think it's lawful good or anything. So I'm going to True Strike, which is a smart thing to do because next time we'll hit it. Knock Knock's going to we're still going defensive since he got mezzed, which is a miracle in and of itself. Okay, everybody's trying to get their best to hit. I should delay him by one so Lindsay can get a bonus on him, but I don't. Now he's awake. I should have waited for Lindsay to give us a bonus because now you can't mez him. That's what I should have done. Then he'd get a +2 bonus for that. That's all you can do, Lindsay. And all he can do is put guidance on people. No, what's he going to do? He's going to summon monster. That's probably not the wisest decision. Curious what I actually do here because I can't remember. This is what makes Blessing of the Faithful long. You need to either get that on Knock Knock or her. Her attack is 21. His is 25. Mine's 34, which is great. Knock Knock's is 20. So put it on Knock Knock so that he has a chance. I'll get an additional +2 because the guy needs to be able to hit. There we go. He did the smart thing. Okay. Cool. I got 34. I should be hitting this thing. Go for it, buddy. You got True Strike on. So the first one hit because of True Strike. Did quite a bit of damage. The Owlbear's at 50%. And he did it. That's nice. So now it's up to her. If only she could hit or crit, and she does, which is a miracle. And because she did it, Ragongar and Knock Knock and I all got hit. So there you go. The gigantic freaking Owlbear goes down. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it actually mezzed. But see, if you get on the message boards or get on Reddit, you will see people struggling with this particular fight. Bracers are nice. The bracers are armor +5 for me, so I don't have to cast mage armor anymore. But you will see people complaining about that fight for good reason, because the first few times I played this game, I got mowed down by it, and just really, really got mowed down by it. But once you figure out all the tools, particularly Lindsay, and how to buff your offense so that you can actually hit it, then at least on core rules, it's not that bad. So that's cool. We get braces of armor. It still takes me a few more episodes before I figure out that I don't have to cast mage armor anymore. So Jod's here. Jod's been saved. Keston's been saved.
Right. All hail me. Thanks for knocking some sense back into me. Not sure I could live with myself if Jod had been gobbled up while I was playing hero out there.
Yep, so thanks to your convincing, thanks to being lawful, because that's the only way to get that option. Both these guys are saved, and they can both be used as advisors.
Make your way there and destroy the source of this plague. Burn everything in your sight if need be.
That's what I'm gonna do.
There are still many wounded in the city streets. I aim to help everyone I can. Hardly a scratch, Your Grace. I'm afraid the same can't be said of many of the townsfolk. Go, Your Grace. I must leave as well. The battle isn't over yet. Horrendous creatures prowl the streets, and there are wounded in need of aid. Erastil, save us all.
It won't be Erastil who does the saving. It'll be me. So, looks like we've got a breather, if you don't mind me saying. You're an exceptional warrior, Your Grace. I'm not sure you even need the city guard. We'll hold the city. You can trust us. Focus on finding the heart of this disease. Yes, you're our best hope. You're our only hope, Princess Leia. Well, now that is taken care of. So now we have to go to the next part. And what's interesting is I like this part of this chapter where you're fighting the goblins and then you come here and you straight up fight these guys. You can see the bewildering injury. Its armor class was 30 and there was a size difference of -2 and then the bewildering injury twice. So that's why its armor class started to come down enough for everybody to hit it. That's what I'm looking at there. And I'm looking at my bonuses. Flanking, heroism, haste, outflank, hit, weapon focus for the Kirkries, keen for the Kukris. It's dexterity 6. So that's how I rolled a 7 and I hit that thing. I mean, because it's got those minuses. So that's why it was so important for Knock Knock and I to hit it, to bring up, -2s and all those kinds of things. You gotta mess with those numbers via your abilities and your spells and all that kind of stuff, so that you bring its armor class down and your to hit goes up. But I really enjoy the part with the goblins and the part with all these creatures in the giant owlbear, and it's all pretty much straightforward. Now we're going to get to the confusing part of this chapter, because when we get to the Womb of Lamashtu, to the second level, that's when the developers really want to confuse you. And that's when I really recommend you just have a walkthrough available. I should be taking all these swords because I think they're masterwork swords. I think the thing to do there would have been to grab all those swords and go sell them to Verdell before you leave, but hindsight being what it is. Yeah, so the developers, there are certain points in this game where I just really feel like having a walkthrough is really important. In fact, I kind of feel like one of the really important things to do is have an Excel spreadsheet like I have and make notes about various quests and dialogue choices, like earlier with Keston, where, an important note in my Excel spreadsheet is to be lawful. And another note which came about from this playthrough is, if you want the mites and the kobolds, if you want to be able to get to a resolution without having to kill them all, you need to be neutral. So lawful neutral. And then when it comes time to deal with Keston, you have that lawful option and you can not lose him. You can tell him, hey, screw your head back on straight and head back to the capital. So strengthen Kessel's skills. Trying to get all of our kingdom management stuff here. Jubilost is previously occupied. So I usually don't do opportunities unless somebody is available and there's nothing else going on. And if we're going to pass 14 days because we're raising an advisor, then we might as well throw somebody who's free onto an opportunity and potentially raise a stat up a couple of points. So if we buy enough BP, we can throw him on there. This is a 20-day one, so we know it's not going to make 14 days just automatically pass. So we can start that project, and it's going to take 20 days for him. So take care of a couple of these things before we start heading up the river to that location on the eastern side of Lake Silverstep Village. Now, we're making a mistake here, but I don't know it at the time. You need some camping supplies. Now, what I didn't know is that in the second level of the Womb of Lamashtu, there's a place that you can camp, and you can go back to it as many times as you want and camp there. But I was thinking that because I didn't have these notes for this particular place, that I was going to be screwed. So what we're going to do at the start of next episode is we're going to run all the way back up to Oleg's Rest, and we're going to get camping supplies from him. But we actually didn't need to. I have enough camping supplies for 2 nights of rest. So, at any rate, this is the sign-off. One of only 3 episodes where I'll have to do this. Where I'll have to do this post voiceover. I'll see you all next time. You know the deal. Comments, likes, subscribe. Happy gaming, everyone.